welcome to another edition of 4.0 and Below, where we love our creases to pieces. Okay, we got no new comics to show off this week, so instead we went dumpster diving into the long boxes of the old collection to see what we could unearth. And what we came up with is a complete run of Astonishing Tales, starting with number 1. Now, this was a co-feature featuring Ka-Zar and, of all people, Dr. Doom. Now, on the first couple issues here, I know the Ka-Zar story was written by Stan Lee, and the art was actually provided by Jack Kirby. Pretty cool story. He's fighting Kraven the Hunter because he's after Zabu. And actually, the Dr. Doom story is actually pretty cool, too. I think that was written by Roy Thomas, and the art was by Wally Wood. And old Doomy, he's facing a coup from Prince Rodolfo, who claims to be the rightful heir to the Latverian throne. And I thought the little mummy guy there might be Nikantu, the living mummy, but he hadn't been invented yet. He didn't show up until a couple years later in, I think, Suspense Thrillers number 5. I just bought that. I should know that. I should have wrote it down. This bloody coup continues in issue number 2, as well does the Ka-Zar story. Yeah, it looks like a big John Buscema cover to me. I think that first one looks like a Severin cover to me. I don't think it's John. It's probably Mary. That looks like a Mary Severin. Anyway, number 2. Again, that's definitely big John Buscema there on the artwork. Okay, and number 3. I believe the coup is still going on. In fact, that's not a mummy at all. That's actually something of Doom's creation called the Doomsman. But of course, he kind of goes rogue and joins up with an alien, the Faceless One, if I remember writing. And so they're trying to kill Doom. Rodolfo's trying to kill Doom. Of course, Doom is Doom. So Doom is triumphant in the end. As for the Ka-Zar story, I think, yeah, the Kraven stuff was over. And I think Kirby was gone and Lee was gone at this point. And I think Barry, before the Windsor Smith, took over the art. So that's pretty cool. And I think this starts a pretty lengthy arc where it's like the Petrified Man and Zaladin. You remember, if you guys read X-Men, you know who those guys are. It's like Garok, the Sun God. And it's like War in the Savage Land and mass hysteria. And then in number 4... that fight continues, and Doom, after, and the other story I think is actually pretty hilarious. Doom, after putting down that coup, decides to take some time off, and he goes to the French Riviera to do some gambling, and a couple idiot thieves decide they're going to break into his room and steal his armor, and that goes about as well as you think. Unfortunately for Doom, while he's off gallivanting around, in issue number 5, the Red Skull takes that opportunity to invade the war-torn Latveria and kind of take over. And so that was kind of interesting. And I think the Ka-Zar, yeah, that's still, he's still fighting Zaladin. And Garok is going to sacrifice himself to save the Earth or something, or some such nonsense. And then in issue number 6, Doom, after kicking the Red Skull out of Latveria, sets his sights on Wakanda, because he's after all the vibranium there. Of course, with that brings him into conflict with the Black Panther and T'Challa there. And I believe in that issue, also in the Ka-Zar story, there's a new character, a lady, who eventually turns out to be Bobby Morris, and of course she later turns into Mockingbird. And I think one of the most hated characters in the Marvel Universe. I'm not sure. I don't necessarily agree with that. But, you know, hey, what are you going to do? And in issue number 7, I believe that wraps up the Garok and Zaladin story in the Ka-Zar arc. And it also wraps up the very brief war between Latveria and Wakanda. And obviously, the Black Panther won that war. So, sorry, Vic. Not this time. Okay, and that gets us up to issue number 8, which is the last appearance of Dr. Doom in this series. And as for the new Ka-Zar arc, Bobby Morse crash lands in the Savage Land looking for Ka-Zar. And who wrote this? I can't remember. But anyway, I think they saw The Land That Time Forgot on the Late Late Show, or they read the book, which is Edgar Rice Burroughs, the Caprona series, which is actually pretty good if you've never read it. And of course, they turned those into the movies, The Land That Time Forgot and The People That Time Forgot. Also, a little cheesy on the effects. I actually like the dinosaur effects in this. It's all really good, and I highly recommend it. So yeah, these stories kind of copy the same arc. Like these British sailors and these German sailors are shipwrecked in the Savage Land during the war, and of course they're still fighting the war 20 years later, not realizing it's over. And I believe that fight continues here. And of course, like I said, Doom's out in issue number 9. And so there's a few different backup stories, some reprints. I think some old Lorne of the Jungle Girls with some pretty good Bill Everett art. It's kind of fun to read. It looks like a Gil King cover to me, maybe. And let's see. In issue number 10, I believe AIM shows up in these issues because Bobby's fiance is like one head AIM dude or something. So I always liked AIM, the men in the yellow beehive suits. They were always fun. And in issue number 11 of Astonishing Tales, we actually get an origin story of Lord Kevin Plunder, of course, who is Ka-Zar. And in issue number 12, this is kind of some interesting stuff. Ka-Zar goes to the Everglades with Agent Morse, who turns out to be an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., and they're looking for Ted Sallis, because apparently Ted Sallis was working on trying to redevelop the super soldier serum, and of course we all know that went horribly, horribly awry, resulting in Sallis becoming the Man-Thing, who shows up then, excuse me, where is that? In issue number 13, which actually has a flashback sequence with a bunch of pretty cool art by Neil Adams that was supposed to show up in Savage Tales number 2. Of course, the Man-Thing first appeared in Savage Tales number 1, but Savage Tales number 2 never saw the light of day. And so this technically is like the second appearance of the Man-Thing in the Marvel Universe. And moving on to issue number 14. This is kind of a standalone story. It's like it was a filler. Some evil couple in a tank are running amok in the Savage Land looking for Savage Land vibranium, which of course is different than Wakanda vibranium. Savage Land vibranium basically liquefies all metal, which means, running around with a tank is probably not the best idea in the world. And then after that, we're kind of back to the super soldier serum formula with Ka-Zar's New York adventure. One of Sallis's fellow scientists who was working on the project got shot, in, if I remember right. So she's laid up in the hospital. He's in New York trying to protect her. And he winds up getting in some family issues or something. And he kind of winds up getting in a gangland turf war. And so him and Zabu, kind of start cracking heads and taking names, including in issue number 16. And, of course, everybody wants to get their hands on the super soldier serum, including some dude named Gemini. And he has his hands on the monster Gog, who also fights Ka-Zar in issue number 18. And also looking out for the super soldier serum is Victorious. And the only reason I know that is because it's written on the front of the next issue. If I remember right, Ka-Zar finally gets his hands on the serum, and I think they want him to drink it, but he kind of winds up refusing to. I think for some reason they think maybe he's the only one who can handle it. Something, I can't remember. It's been years since I've read these. And then issue number 20 wraps up the Ka-Zar arc in Astonishing Tales, and I believe it spun off into his own series from there. He had a bunch of, they kept trying to give this guy a book, and it just never quite a river. never seem to last very long, excuse me. And so that's going to wrap up our first part of our Astonishing Tales full run recap here. Let me know if you like these little mini history lessons, or if you just want to hear, or you just want to see the covers, and just have me shut up and just and just shut up and show the comics, that kind of thing. Let's see. Before we wrap this up, I want to give. Oh, stay tuned for part 2. Where that's shot. I just need to edit it together, and finding time to edit together. And good Lord. And again, before I wrap this episode up, I want to give some shout outs to some new subscribers. After Comics, Dr. Von Chilla, Symphonic Elk, Metaraj, Pop vs. Rock, Poor Man's Comics, and Max Schmidt. Again, guys, thank you so much for the likes and the follows and the comments. And if you're new here, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe at your leisure. Again, we'll be back to finish off this run of Astonishing Tales. And, we'll probably have a few more hauls, get some new stuff. And, we'll keep dumpster diving in the long boxes and see what else we can find. And I'll see what else I can show off to you all. So until next time, this is WB Kelso for 4.0 and below. Thanks for tuning in. And remember to never, ever be embarrassed by what you can afford to buy comic-wise. Thanks for tuning in. See ya. Bye.